Welcome to a KSTP.com and 1500ESPN.com Vikings online sports wrap. It's Darren, Doogie, Wolfson. It's Vikings beat reporter Tom Pelissero from 1500ESPN.com. Tom, the only place you spent more time at the last 11 days was Boomtown compared to the practice field. You saw every snap, every play. How much have you learned these last 11 days here in Mankato?
It's weird because if you think back to a year ago, there were so many injuries. Favre wasn't here. We were all wondering what the offense was going to be. But I actually come away from this camp with just as many questions because we've just seen this sort of growth process going on with the offense. Today was the best they've looked, but we know they're working with a very limited menu that they're going to have in for Tennessee. I don't have a real good read for what the offense is going to be. There's obviously a lot of questions with the offensive line. The defense looks very good, but they're playing an offense that so far is not in sync yet. I'm really interested to see how the preseason shakes out because I still think that as much as the Vikings right now, we seem to have a pretty good read on most of the starting jobs, I think a lot of things could change based on how guys actually perform over these next 4 weeks.
I agree. Still so many questions. One thing I've learned, Tom, just on background, talking to enough guys love playing for Leslie Frazier. He's an easy guy to gravitate toward. They love busting their you-know-what for Leslie Frazier.
And that's something that I've heard, too, is just that there's this sort of a different vibe around here. You had, with Brad Childress, especially when all the Favre stuff was going on, you had this sort of uneasiness where guys didn't feel as though Brad was being upfront with them, where guys didn't feel as though, you know, they were necessarily being told the truth, that they were being brought in on things. He kind of kept everybody on a need-to-know basis, whereas Frazier, it's little things. I mean, even with us, you know, with Brad, what's Basante Shanko's injury? Well, it's a strain. Strain of what? The muscle. With Frazier, it's a hamstring strain. This is not proprietary information. This is not stuff that's going to make an impact in the preseason. It's little things like that where Frazier has obviously learned from the mistakes maybe that were made in the past here and is just trying to be a little bit more upfront. And that's what guys say is he's straight with you. You know exactly where you stand with him. And that's a big thing. Guys like Bernard Berrien even. You see a different attitude from a Bernard Berrien because he didn't feel as though he was being told the truth about his role. He didn't feel as though he was being put in positions to succeed. There seems to be a little bit more give and take. It's been made real clear to the staff. Bill Musgraves wants input from guys, wants to suit things to people's strengths. There's not that same rigidity, I think, that Brad Childress had where it was my way or the highway. With Frazier, it seems to be a little bit more ebb and flow. It doesn't mean he's going to have any more success. Brad Childress won a lot of football games here, but that's the difference in the vibe so far.
Let's talk about some individual players, some individual positions. I'm worried about that left tackle spot. How about you?
I think that's the biggest thing. He looks good, right?
I did shake.
Basante Shanko chiming in on how you're looking. But yeah, the left tackle spot I think is one of the big questions you're going to have going into the season here. I'm still not convinced that Charlie Johnson ultimately on September 11th is going to be the starting left tackle. At the same time, they don't have a lot of good options because we talked about in the last one of these we did. Phil Odell doesn't have the feet for left tackle. They want to keep him on the right side. He's that power build that you look for in a right tackle. Doesn't have that same quickness, but with Johnson, boy, you watch again and again the speed rush beat him, but whether it's Everson Griffin, whether it's Jared Allen, I really wonder because you can only give a guy so much help. Bill Musgraves made really clear the number one job of his is going to be keep the quarterback upright, keep the quarterback clean. There's only so much you can do. You can't have a 7-man protection on every snap.
You spent a considerable amount of time around Musgrave. You just mentioned Musgrave in the offseason. How much of his offense were they able to install down here?
Well, they're still in that process. I think that the plan is to have the rest of it in by about the third preseason game. So it's an evolving process. Last week, it was I think last Thursday, so 4 days into camp, they actually cut off the install temporarily just to try to keep guys' heads from swimming. It was just, all right, let's review what we've got. We went back to the install the past few days, and then today, another review day. You can see on the review days that the offense has a little bit more going for it. Today was the best the offense has looked. That's not saying much, but today was the best the offense has looked. They're going to put in a very small number of plays. It could only be about 20 plays. They'll play 70 snaps, and they'll run some plays 3 or 4 times because you're going to have different quarterbacks and different groups going out there. What's going to happen when they put in a little bit more volume remains to be seen.
Let's play the over-under game. Over-under, Donovan McNabb starts 13.5.
I think that's probably a good number. If you look at his track record, there haven't been a lot of seasons. I think only one time in the past 5 or 6 years that he's played 16 games. I think that the odds say that at some point somebody else is going to have to start a game. Go back to the left tackle spot. A lot of it's going to come down to, do they protect him? Because he's 34 years old, right? I mean, he's not a young quarterback anymore. He may not be in absolutely, you know, peak physical condition at this point. He's still working off some weight. You know, if he takes a beating early on in the preseason, does it wear on him? We saw that last year in Washington. He had a horrible offensive line, and what that showed was he's no longer capable of playing above the level of his offensive line. If these guys don't keep him clean, yeah, those nicks are going to add up.
Bernard Berrien catches of 20 yards or more, 10.
I think that's probably generous. I think they're going to use him on a lot of intermediate to deep routes. So maybe, yeah, maybe that's not a bad number. I think that it's going to come down to the percentage, though. They're not going to use him underneath. you know, there was one game last year where he had something like 10 catches for 90 yards. We're not going to see that again. He's going to be playing the split end in this offense. They're going to run a lot of intermediate to deep routes. You're probably going to have Jamar Johnson as the other guy in that spot who's going to take some of the snaps off of him. They need Bernard Berrien to be a vertical presence in this offense. They also expect Michael Jenkins to do that too.
There's certainly an element of luck and circumstance in sports. Look at the Bears last year, playing 4 or 5 backup quarterbacks. The win against the Lions early on the Calvin Johnson non-touchdown. So a lot can change. But the Vegas over-under on wins for the Vikings is 7. Over or under?
Based on what I've seen, I think that that's a fair line. I think that it can go either way. They could be a 5-win team. They could be a 9-win team. If I had to guess right now, I would take the over just because I think that they could be a 7-8-win team versus a 6 or 7-win team. They do have a lot of talent on the defensive side. I think you've got some guys who are motivated this year, and there's only so much that can be said for that. It is a bit of a cliche, but you have guys like Jared Allen and Kevin Williams who are coming off of subpar years, and now perhaps have a little bit more going for them in terms of needing to be the leaders for that defense. They're going to have Fred Puggett, who's going to play an aggressive scheme. Is it going to be a lot different than what Leslie Frazier did? No, I don't think it's going to be, but you maybe have a little bit different attitude, and that defense knows that it has to do more.
Did you tell me this morning that Tennessee Saturday, that's a must-win game?
No. I think that you're going to see really ugly football. As much as everyone says, oh, the quality should be fine. Every first preseason game, the third and fourth quarters are garbage, and it's not going to be any different. If anything, it's probably going to be worse, because now instead of having 80 guys you're trying to work in, you're going to have 90. You're going to have 10 guys on both teams who normally wouldn't be on an NFL roster this time of year going out and playing probably a quarter or two.
Something that won't be ugly, Tom Pelissero's work from Nashville. Check it out this weekend, 1500 ESPN.com. For Tom Pelissero, I'm Darren Doogie Wolfson. Have a great Thursday, everybody.